it's very, very difficult to be 22, 23, 24, full stop, particularly now with the glamorous lives that are shown as parallel lives that you could be leading on social media. The comparison that you put yourself under is enormous. Back in my day, there was no social media.
You're not just comparing yourself with your friends, it's with everyone in the world.
Everyone in the world. So you're bound to go under. I mean, people are going under all the time because you just feel this is my life and it's a bit shit. And look at all these people that are just traveling the world, eating in fantastic restaurants, but they're not really. I mean, it's just all fake. Going back to about 25, 26, dark times, I discovered Eastern philosophy, Buddhism. To me, that light bulb moment, the sudden realization that...
Hi, Dad.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thanks for joining my podcast.
It's my pleasure.
What do you do? What's your profession?
I am a playwright. I write plays mainly for the stage, a couple of times for the screen. But yeah, I make stuff up.
Is that what you knew you wanted to be in your 20s?
Originally, I wanted to be an actor. I always wrote plays and I always acted in plays at school. I was fortunate enough to have a very good English teacher who dragged me kicking and screaming because I was pretty shy, although I did buffoon around for attention at home. But I was a bit too shy to be in the school plays. But he saw something in me, slapped me into the plays. Unfortunately, we had a really healthy school production, play production system. So there were loads and you could have good parts. So the better actors got the bigger parts. It wasn't just everyone being in it.
So you felt quite confident you wanted to be an actor?
Well, I suddenly felt that I had something that I could do that gave me pleasure and other people pleasure. And from being I didn't feel I was particularly taken seriously as a kid at home. And suddenly I felt a kind of sense of belonging. So from the age of 14, 15, 16, theatres felt to me like a place where I could express myself.
In terms of your peer group, people your age, were they as clear as you of what they wanted to do?
Some of them were. Most of them probably weren't. But I went to a school that was kind of very career orientated. And yeah, I always was amazed that people around me, like at 13, 14, wanted to be a brain surgeon and indeed have gone on to be one. And another friend of mine wanted to be a colonel in the army, and he was gone on to be one. I wasn't so sure. I just knew that I liked acting, and that was the only thing I really had any enthusiasm for. I was certainly much more interested in acting and plays than I was in the academic side of things.
So why did you study English literature?
Well, I really wanted to go to drama school, but I was advised, probably, wisely, because I was relatively academic. I was, always good at passing exams anyway, that I should go to university and not be an actor. So I went to read English language and literature, still did lots of acting, and that was really what I wanted to do, not be sitting in a room talking about medieval texts. I just wanted to be acting and or writing. So I wrote a few plays at university and then came out into the world, and the cold, brutal reality hit me that I wasn't suddenly going to be welcomed open arms into the profession just from having done a few plays.
Before we get to coming into the brutal, cold world after university, let's focus on university. So what was that experience like? And if you could go back in time, how would you spend that time differently?
Well,
Those 3 years.
I look back with a certain amount of shame because unlike for you guys, it was free, So I just wanted to mess around. I mean, literally party.
I think that's similar to people nowadays.
Yeah, but I think that I would think now if you did a degree like English, seeing as you have to supposedly pay the money back, 30 grand or whatever it is after a certain period of time.
Yeah, 27 grand.
Whether you're going to 3 years of drinking and, messing about, which is what I did, would be hard to justify. So, I mean, I had fun in inverted commas, but really what I was actually doing was running away from myself, drinking too much, taking drugs, chasing women, but all because I was ultimately a misery. I mean, I looking back, I realised that I was a sort of angry, fairly unhappy young man. And obviously when I came out of university and you haven't got the structure of college to plaster over it, then you're trying to survive in my case in London without any real goal because I wanted to be an actor or a writer, but I had no idea how you went about it. So I just ended up in a series of low-paid jobs. So I really started going downhill. I was floundering big time when I was, well, your age, 21, 22. Yeah.
Can you please go more into floundering about after coming out of university? What does that mean?
I think I was labouring under the misapprehension that the world was going to pat me on the head and welcome me in. And I think I had some notion that I could get by on just charm and, just having a something to say. But I didn't really have anything to say. I was just angry. And so I had to pay a little bit of money back, so I ended up in an office job, the first job I could find, and I just got stuck in an office job, thinking all the while that I should really be, Kenneth Branagh, or I should be the next young acting star, and hadn't even been to drama school, So I really, it was all muddled thinking on my part. And then I was in this office job, which was not creative. I was with a girlfriend that we didn't get on because I think that it's very difficult, as I've tried to tell you for most of your life. You could have a relationship with somebody, but if you're getting up every day and doing something that you hate doing and it's not creatively fulfilling, may or may not be earning you money. You could be earning loads of money, but if you're not enjoying yourself for 9 or 10 hours of your day, it's your relationship's going to get affected. So you have to have an amazingly good relationship to withstand being miserable at work or not knowing what you want to do. Mainly not knowing what you want to do, which is an affliction that I think millions of us, I certainly had it. Although I did know what I wanted to do.
You wanted to be an actor.
I had no idea, but I'd kind of given up on it. I had no idea how you did it. I mean, I just no idea. Although, I'm a sort of well-educated middle-class guy. A lot of people in that bracket have no problem training to be actors, but I just didn't know how you went about it. I didn't have the money, couldn't afford to go to drama school. I just come out of university. I didn't really want to go to another institution. So even though I had an idea that that's what I wanted to do, as the months and the years went past, it seemed less and less likely. And I was drinking too much, taking drugs.
So your lifestyle was kind of going in a different direction than your actual career.
I was 22, 23. I was going downhill fast. I mean, I was in a state. I was sort of had a friend, and we made some music. So I thought, I'll be a pop star instead of an actor. I mean, it was all pie in the sky, and we recorded a few. We spent money on a professional recording studio, but the stuff was mediocre.
Was this when you were in your mid-20s?
No, I was 22. Just in the first year after I graduated from university. I look back on them and they were really lost years. I spent whole sort of summers, we were taking drugs, and I'd sit in a whole beautiful summer's day in London. I'd be sitting outside in a car. My friend would be a dealer trying to sort of get some cocaine, and that was what I was sitting. And I look back and think that throwing away the whole summer of my life in this sort of lonely pursuit of pleasure. But really, I was just an addict. I was miserable,
So what were you addicted to?
Well, anything I could get my hands on. I mean, speed, coke, a lot of E at that time. And of course you do ecstasy the first time you do it. It's unbelievable, but then you're constantly chasing that first feeling, which you never get back, but you keep trying. Alcohol, I was on a self-destruction when my relationship foundered then. So I was on my own. I sort of ended up being on my own. And I realized pretty quickly if I didn't make a decision soon about what I was going to do. So I ended up, I thought, if I'm going to train to be an actor, I better get on with it. So I managed to get into a drama school.
And how old were you when you did this?
It was 23.
So my age.
Yeah.
So this is when you kind of put your head down and like, okay,
I thought I've got to, if I'm going to be an actor, I've got to try and get in. So I auditioned for drama school and I got into one. I only wanted to do 1 year. I couldn't face doing 3 year. So looking back, I should have tried to get into one of the top drama schools, and if I hadn't got in, I'd have probably gone, right, well, it's not going to happen. But I got into one drama school, which I didn't, looking back, I don't think I had a very good actor's education. I'm not sure you can learn too much in a year. I think I got ripped off, and I think our whole year got ripped off. So we paid a lot of money, and the training wasn't that good. So when I came out, I didn't feel I'd learned anything, and I was, and $5,000 more in debt.
And were you looking at your peers, your friends, or people you knew at school, and what they were doing at 23? And were you kind of like comparing yourself and thinking, are they progressing more than me? Are they knuckling down more? Or they're just as lost? What was the atmosphere at the time?
Yeah, I think everyone's a bit lost, aren't they? I mean, at that age, I mean, it's very, very difficult to be 22, 23, 24, full stop, and particularly now with the glamorous lives that are shown as parallel lives that you could be leading on social media, the pressure, the comparison that you put yourself under is enormous. Back in my day, there was no social media, so
it's not just you're not just comparing yourself with your friends; it's with everyone in the world.
Everyone in the world. So you're bound to go under. I mean, people are going under all the time because you just feel, well, this is my life and it's a bit shit. And look at all these people that are just traveling the world, eating in fantastic restaurants. But they're not really. I mean, it's just all fake. But in my day, your friends were the people that you went to the pub with, and that was it. So I didn't have any friends that wanted to be actors. I felt very on my own. I just didn't get a very good start to be an actor, and I was full of self-doubt. And so when I came out of drama school, I was actually more of a mess than before I went in. I kind of thought
really?
I thought it was going to cure me and give me a focus. But of course, then you've got to, all right, I've got to train to be an actor, and I've got to get an agent, and you've got to get yourself organised.
Once you're out of the structure of a college and a school, you're really left to your own devices.
Yeah, of course. It's
completely.
People who sort of turn their noses up at actors and call them lovies. I mean, it's a brutal profession, and you have to be really organised, and you constantly getting rejected or just ignored. Obviously, when we think of actors, we think of the famous ones who've made it, but that's
what percentage do you think make it?
Well, to make it, i.e., to not have to do anything else other than act. I mean, I don't know, 1%.
Yeah.
And that 1%, I get all the jobs and have a fantastic living.
So what was the point where you made that switch from acting to writing?
Well, because I didn't have an agent. I had no confidence. I wasn't organised. I was then stuck in a series of low-paid jobs, and the years tick by. You're getting older, and you're still doing low-paid jobs.
Can you give some examples of what those jobs were?
Well, I had the worst kind of job that a young actor could get, because the first one was working at the National Theatre, which you think would be good, but of course it was behind the bar. So I was working in the bar at the National Theatre in the world of success and great plays going on, none of which I was a part of. And I was drinking too much. There was a few bad influences there, and I was on the other side of the divide. And then I moved up to the green room, which is the bar for the actors and the directors. So that's even worse, because then you're actually with the people who are all.
Can you network? No.
I had social anxiety to a degree. I wouldn't have thought, it manifested itself in different ways, but I kind of drank to alleviate it. So I couldn't communicate with anybody, and nobody who's just played Henry V at the National is gonna listen to a half drunk barman who's trying to wheedle his way into a production. So yeah, it didn't do me any good. Then I worked building furniture, waiting on tables. Did a few days on a building site. Could only last a couple of days because it was too brutal. I mean, so I was just, again, now I had then I was also in debt from having gone to drama school. So it's a real loser's tale.
What was the thing about Swede?
Oh, that was later on.
Okay.
That's later on.
That's later on.
Yeah, when I had to chase vegetables down a steep hill. Well, that was in my 30s.
Okay.
So I've spent my life because I didn't want to do. My driving factor was not to do a normal job, because I wanted to be free, and I knew I had an ability to act, and I knew I had an ability to write. Somehow that was innate within me.
That's interesting how you say not having a normal job means you're free. What? So would you say...
I didn't feel free then. I can tell you that. But
can you be in a normal job like a 9 to 5 and feel free? Is there a way of feeling free?
If you enjoy it, I mean...
If you enjoy it.
If you like the people you work with, and you like the work you're doing, and it has some kind of meaning for you, then I think it's great and actually enviable.
You get security.
Yeah, you have financial security. You like the people you work with, and that's an important thing. And you feel that your job gives you some intrinsic meaning, I mean, that sounds great. I mean, what proportion of people on this planet have that life? I think is very, very small. But if you can do that, I would prefer that life to the one I lead at the moment. But I know that I would struggle with authority and, sitting in meetings and wearing a suit and tie, which apparently no one wears anymore.
Because your friend came recently who's retiring from his 30 years at what was the job?
He's kind of works he's a sort of IT in a legal firm, which I ended up. It's one of the jobs I had 30 years ago.
Yeah.
They needed extra people. I got him in,
but now he's completely free.
And I lasted, a year and a half doing it. It was just I was going up the walls. He's just done 30 years and has retired.
But I find it interesting because he describes it as like doing time. He said it's like doing time.
Yeah, and I remember I worked in the office with him, and it was a windowless office, and it's. And I just thought, I mean, good luck to him. He has served his time, and now he's 57, and he'll have hopefully 20, 25, 30 years of suiting himself. He's financially secure. He's got a good pension. None of the things I have. But I have, for all those 30 years that he spent in the office, most of that I've been pottering around, doing my own thing. So you don't get that time back. So
yeah, I mean, I guess I've had kind of a strange dynamic of both of my parents knocking around the house and not going to 9-to-5 jobs, which is more the typical for the dad to go out or maybe more traditional. I mean,
I have sort of done, worked as a play publisher for a couple of years, but it's not me. So my goals, such as they were when we're jumping ahead a bit, when I had you, so I was early 30s, was, okay, I'm a playwright. So the only two things that I need to concentrate on are being as good a playwright as I can be and as good a parent, husband as I can be. And I knew that to do that, I'd have to get out of London, because I'm a playwright that earns money, but not masses of money, not enough to bring up a family on that earnings on my own. And your mum obviously was a homemaker. So it was on my earnings as a playwright. So we had to flee, and then I could be at home. And so we both were at home for all three of you.
Yeah. So I want to look into more of the pros and cons of being freelance compared to a 9-to-5. So in your experience, what do you think have been the pros?
The pros are generally, if, I'm a bit of a part of that minimalist movement before we moved here. So like, what do I need? What do I want? What do I need? Well, obviously all you need is a house. You need somewhere to live. And you need enough money to not be stressed out, because not having money, as we all know, is what stresses people out, ruins relationships, ruins family life more than anything else, is just fretting about money. So downsizing was what I did, which then the more you dispense with, the more free you have, because obviously the less material, the less income you need. So the advantages are not having a boss as such. You do have a boss if you're a playwright. If you get a commission, you have a producer or a director telling you, well, I don't like that line, or I don't like that scene. So a degree you do have a.
But it's not a. Well, how is it different to a 9-to-5 boss? Well,
most of the bosses I had, they were sort of like dictators. In the end, your day is controlled by somebody else.
Yes, your day to day is controlled.
And if you can see beyond what the boss is doing for the right reason, you said the actual goal of what I'm doing with my day is my time. I'm giving my time to an entity, but normally that entity is some faceless institution that wants to make money. So if you're prepared to give your precious time to some kind of faceless institution that only cares about how much money you're making for that institution, then great. I was going to kick against that. And I'd rather do anything. So for me, writing I look on it as a sort of weapon to cut my way through to some sense of liberation away from the system, which sounds quite puerile, but that's all to me being a writer or being an artist is. It's separating oneself from the working world and actually doing something that is quite useless. The world needs no more plays. The world's not going to notice if I never write another play again. But that's the kind of rebellion of it. Is it its own intrinsic uselessness. But then, of course, we all know that we all watch TV shows. Not everyone goes to the theatre, but we kind of need. There's a need to have our stories of our lives reflected, by other people. And watching actors is, we all do it. Everybody loves watching actors, whether they admit to it or not. There's very few people that don't watch, dramas on TV. Or
if someone were to say to their parents, "I want to be a writer or an actor," would you say that the standard response would be, "Oh, but you're not guaranteed to be making money or making a living that way," and parents would push them towards like something a bit more serious?
Anyone can write at any time, can't they? You don't need a degree to be a playwright, or so obviously it's going to be very difficult to make a living writing. Some writers earn an absolute fortune, but the vast majority, like me, earn just about enough to have a relatively dignified life. And you have to be able to cope with feast or famine. So for even like I had a play on 2024 earned me quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
Last year I've hardly earned anything.
So
this year I'll have another play on.
It's completely insecure.
It's totally insecure. So that's why, for me, downsizing was a way of withstanding the lean periods, and hopefully, when you do get something that makes you a bit of money, you don't go crazy and buy a yacht. But you have to be sensible, particularly if you've got a family. I've raised 3 kids on it, and
on being self-employed,
and it's kind of, I when I'm feeling down about myself, I go, no, you're all quite nice people, so I think that's an achievement. But yeah, it's very, very insecure. And anyone who wants to be a writer that goes into it for money, or to be an actor that goes into it purely for money, and I'm sure there are people like that, I wouldn't say that's the great motivating factor. If you want to act or want to write, it's there. You're going to have to do it anyway. Writers write, and that's what they do. And if they manage to make a living out of it, then good luck to them.
But you submitted some plays to the BBC Writers' Room, and they didn't accept. They didn't read. My
whole writing career has been a litany of rejection, and I'm still rejected.
I mean, it's similar to being an actor, trying to be an actor.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, when I made the decision that I was going to not pursue acting because I wasn't getting anywhere, and I was a bit lost. But then I just one night I just sat down and wrote this play. It was literally over 2 nights, and it all came out of me. And a lot of it was the misery that I'd had. I used a lot of the unhappiness, of the loneliness, and
of your 20s,
rattling around London. Yeah, and it sort of came out in a play. And I think I wrote 3 or 4 plays in a 6-month period. I sent them all off to the Royal Court, to Hampstead, all the theatres that purportedly welcome new writing, and that I just got rejected, flat rejected. All 4 of them. There was one play that was a naturalistic play, one play that was in rhyming couplets, one play that was kind of like an Ionesco theatre of the absurd. I mean, I was throwing everything I had at the world in a last desperate attempt to be involved. I just wanted to be involved in the theatre. They all got rejected until
So what was the turning point where you're like, okay, I could do this. This is what I could do.
Well, it was probably about 3 years after leaving drama school. 3 years of just drifting around, getting nowhere. They're my wilderness years, I'd say. I wrote these 3 or 4 plays, and one of them, and I was getting nowhere. So I thought, okay, I'm not an actor, I'm not a writer, I'm 26. My whole life is just a complete waste. I don't know what I want to do. I don't want to be a school teacher. I wouldn't last 5 minutes. I've no idea what I'm going to do with myself. I mean, I was felt as lost could be. I mean, I'd stopped being abusing drugs and drink at that point. I'd sort of grown up out of that. Thankfully, I'd sort of discovered mindfulness. But I really was. I thought, well, if these plays are getting no encouragement, I was not only getting no encouragement, I was getting sort of some of the responses were fairly brutal. Interestingly enough, all the brutal responses are plays that actually went on later on. So
do you remember what the responses were said?
I think the Royal Court said this play is unstageable.
I mean, that's the worst you can get.
And there was no kind of, please send me anything else you write. I didn't get that at all. So I thought, Christ, I have been deluded. arsehole my whole life. I really thought I could act, and I really thought I could write. And then I got so basically I thought, right, I'm going to emigrate. I'm going to just travel and teach. So I was going to teach, do an EFL course and then travel around Europe or the world and just be a nomad. Because I had friends, but I didn't have a girlfriend at that time. I felt a total alien. I felt I didn't fit into the world in any way, shape, or form. My parents didn't.
You just didn't feel like you fitted anywhere.
I didn't fit. Yeah, my parents didn't get me. I had series of sort of, I was quite promiscuous, but I was never happy. I've screwed up any relationship, half serious relationship I had before it could even get going.
So when you were traveling, was that a sense of like a reset or like?
Well, I wanted to be on my own. Yeah. I knew that I needed to sort of shed myself of everything that up to that point in my life, it wasn't working. My life wasn't working. And I had to work out why and what I was going to do. So I felt that I have to be on my own. I have to get out of London. I have to be on my own. So I kind of went to teach in Croatia for 6 months. But as I was just about to go, I then, probably about 2 weeks before I was due to go, I got a letter from Alan Ayckbourn's theatre in Scarborough. Now, Alan Ayckbourn, for those of you who are maybe American, he's the most famous playwright in the United Kingdom, the most performed playwright after Shakespeare.
Yeah, wow.
And I kind of admired some of his earlier stuff, not some of his later stuff, but I mean, he was doing the sort of satires on middle class dysfunction that I was doing. So
that's quite a good recommendation.
And suddenly he sort of said, I got a letter saying, I think you're a great writer. Loved you to meet my literary manager. He's down in London. Let's talk about you being a writer in residence. Certainly like to stage this play, which is the first play I'd written that had been summarily rejected by every other theatre. And then for that moment, I got that letter. I'd say I was 27. Mm-hmm. Suddenly, I'm not a loser. Suddenly, I have something to offer. Suddenly, I have some kind of talent that may down the road make me some money. And so I met the literary manager, and then from that, I still had to go to Croatia because I already committed. But I went to Croatia knowing that I had something
to come back to.
That I had a chance. Mm-hmm. So I did 6 months Croatia, came back, and that, strangely enough, as you know, the party that my friends threw for me, having a leaving party, was the party I met your mother.
So quite a lot happened in that short period of time.
In 2 days, I had the meeting. It was at the National Theatre with the literary manager for Alan Ayckbourn, and the next night I met your mum at the party that I was leaving to go. So suddenly,
it's crazy how life can be like that.
So suddenly, from feeling a huge loser. I mean, like a failure before I'd even started. Mm-hmm. I mean, feelings of failure haunt writers continually, but I just felt I didn't fit into anything or anywhere. Suddenly I'd met the woman that I ended up being with.
Marrying, having 3 kids.
3 kids. And I had an eminent theatre professional saying, "You're a really good writer." So it sort of changed.
So how old are you at this point?
I'd say I was 27.
So I was 27 when things started to work.
Well, and of course, I came back expecting my play to go on.
But it took how many years?
It took another. From then, it took another 3 years before that play was staged.
What did you do those 3 years? Just keep writing?
I worked in the office that we talked about. My friend.
Oh yes.
I was in the solicitor's firm reading newspapers, which were scouring the newspapers from 1952 to the present day. We talk about working for the devil. It's working for the combined tobacco companies who were preparing their defence against people who had lung cancer. So we were going through every single newspaper that had every day in this country, scouring them for evidence that people knew that smoking caused lung cancer. So I was literally working for Satan for in this office for 3 years, and just when am I going to get a play on? And then
did it feel a little easier knowing that there was a light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, I was married, and I wasn't earning it great. I was living in London and just about holding on financially, but thinking, when I get this play on, it's all going to make sense. So I was.
So what was your vision of like when this play goes on? Could you visualize your?
Well, you hope for you hope that you're going to it's pathetic to say you want recognition, but you want recognition.
Yeah,
you know,
otherwise you won't get anywhere.
you want reviews, good reviews. You want people to love it. You want people to go, write another play for us. I mean, that's the ideal thing that you want when you're committed. But of course, for me, that does happen. For other writers, it certainly didn't happen for me. The play went on it's a small theatre in Scarborough. It got quite good reviews. Scarborough is a theatre that people go to in the summer. They go to, as my mother said famously, your granny.
Yeah.
Why on earth would anybody want to go to have their summer holiday in Scarborough and break it off and then sit through one of your bloody depressing plays?
So
this play was about a young man committing suicide. This play was a sort of was a avatar of myself committing suicide in order to piss his family off. I mean, it was a dark, but very. I mean, it was funny as well. But it probably wasn't the best kind of play for a summer season at Scarborough.
Well, sometimes it's nice to, if you're enjoying the summer, to kind of be reminded of the darkness of humanity.
I don't think so. I think
in the theatre.
I remember standing around in the foyer where the people were coming up going, what you got on? What plays are on? What's that one about? And the guy at the box office saying, well, this is a play about people who are reenacting Civil War battles. It's a comedy, and this one's about a young man killing an young eco warrior committing suicide. And they went, well, I'll go for the first one. So basically, you're selling it on. Yeah, it was a I don't think I've ever written a darker play. It was my first play.
Wrapping up your 20s, where were you at the end of your 20s?
At the end of my 20s, I was married.
Yeah.
So I got married at 28, which I think even in 1997 was considered quite a young age to get married. I mean, I was the first of anyone I knew to get married. But the thing is that I was going to go back to say is that when you're miserable and you don't get on with people, or you don't feel that intimacy, when you do find it, So when I met your mum, I just knew there was no, and had I not gone through all the sort of self-inflicted misery that I had, which was trying to connect to people, connect to the world, and I discovered a bit of meditation, and then that helped me connect to the universe, or connect to nature, or stop the thoughts rattling around in my head that was probably the biggest moment of my life.
Yeah, so explain that.
Well, I think I was going back to about 25, 26, dark times. I discovered, I don't know how, I can't remember, Eastern philosophy, Buddhism. I didn't go sort of full in with Buddhism. I don't believe in reincarnation or anything, but just the sudden realization that we are not our thoughts, and that our thoughts are part of our conditioning from our childhood and onwards. And if we listen to them, we take them too seriously, we can go down the rabbit hole of misery that I had gone down from, literally all my life, to the point where I was hit rock bottom when I was about 25, 26. And I started meditating on my own in Greenwich Park. And slowly and surely, I kind of turned it round. Not my career or anything, but just who I was, and stopped being
your sense of who you were.
I was so ambitious, I was like, I still thought I should be a superstar. I mean, I was so deluded. I mean, if I had an adult around me that sort of, I don't know why anyone didn't step in and see that I was in trouble.
So how did that shift then? What was your image of yourself?
I calmed down.
Meditation?
I calmed down and thought, right, I'm going to stop chasing this acting thing. It's not working, and I just calmed down, and it just calmed me down. And I realised that I'd been believing all the negative self-talk, and of course, if you believe the negative self-talk, your body reacts. So you feel bad. You feel that horrible, hollow, achy,
and you don't know why you feel bad.
Yeah, so therefore, if you're like I was, you drink, or you do anything to get rid of that hollow, empty, achy feeling of loneliness and lack of connection. And then what meditation does, what it did for me, was it made me realize that hollow, empty feeling is okay, and that's part of the human experience. And if you don't, the more you try and get rid of it, the more painful it is. And if you actually sit with it, the pain or whatever it is, it actually dissipates.
Just look at it kind of non-judgmentally.
Yeah, and just sit with it, and don't always try to escape it with sex, alcohol, anything.
Try to escape through hedonism and
and I was a complete hedonist, and it's huge self-destruction. Pointless, embarrassing sexual encounters, embarrassing falling asleep on a tube endless amounts of time, and waking up at the last stop on the Northern Line and having to sort of like hitch my way back into where I lived in. I did that so many times. I was living a bad life.
And did you know you were living a bad life?
Yeah, but I didn't seem to be able to get out of it.
You thought this is just it?
I just didn't have. I needed someone to sort of shake me and get hold of me. Someone who loved me, I guess. Somebody who properly cared about me and sort of snapped me out of it, whether I'd have listened or not.
But through meditation, you were able to find the inner resources to snap yourself out.
I read a lot of. I mean, he's been slightly discredited Osho stuff. And that I found that helped me. I needed to find a connection to something that wasn't people, because most of the people around me seemed they seemed quite unhappy. I didn't know any happy people. Everyone was sort of,
really.
Yeah, I mean, I remember thinking that. I said, guys, everyone around me is not having a good time here. Why is it? Why are we all not having a good time? Most of us are, middle class. You've all been educated. We've all had opportunities. Why is it so difficult to be on this planet spinning through space when we should be just absolutely loving it?
Well, it's interesting you say we've been educated. We've been educated about facts and storing stuff in our brains for passing exams, but we haven't been educated on living.
There's nothing in the school curriculum that teaches you how to exist peacefully on this planet. And that, there's not one moment during my grammar school and then my university careers did anybody teach me anything that has really helped me to be a happy, peaceful person. That was all self-taught afterwards. But yeah, I mean, that needs to, mindfulness. Instead of having school assemblies or people singing "God Save the Queen" or "Land of Hope and Glory" and all that crap, we should be meditating in big groups. And then what we should also be doing is having lessons about how to look after money, because that's the killer. I mean, when you come out of university, you don't know how to look after money. You don't know how to balance your own budgets. You then end up living with massive debt. So yeah, I mean, those two things would be very useful. But then, of course, you've got phones and everything now, which complicates everything. Smartphones. We didn't have that. I mean, it's even more difficult for you guys to be.
That's a good segue. We can talk about that. So I've got a little stat here. So in 2023, a significant 28% of young people aged 20 to 34 in the UK lived with their parents, an increase from 26% in 2013. And that's a higher proportion of men, so 33% of men than women, which is 22% living at home. And I think we discussed before the reasons why that might be, because of rising prices in property, maybe the job market. Could there be any other factors of why are we living with our parents and not out there in the world lost and lonely?
It's hard. I mean, the rents are so high. Yeah. Mortgages are impossible to get unless you're earning 35 grand a year. You probably need two of you to even get to club together, even to get a one-bedroom flat in most parts of southern England. Living with your parents, I'm not surprised it's nearly 1 in 3 20-somethings are living with their parents. I mean, what other options? I mean, it wasn't an option for me because I wouldn't have been able to do it, and they wouldn't have wanted me to be there. I don't think it was never going to be on the table, so I had no option. But yeah, I don't think there's no shame in it. It's just unfortunate that it's so hard for young people to strike out on their own independently, or it takes so long. It's not right. I mean, it's just not right that the housing is.
The world isn't built for a 20-something to make their way.
No, it's the older people who've got all the housing stock and the money and decent pensions for their retirements, and they own the fantastic properties that cost them next to nothing in the 60s and 70s. The boomers, I think, they're known as. Yeah, I mean, I feel I'm sort of the generation after the boomers, and obviously before you. And wasn't easy for us, but it's certainly harder for you guys. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I guess we have to adapt. People will have to adapt. They'll have to be house sharing for longer, and we're living in tents. But well, in terms of when you guys come to want to have families, if having families in this day and age is a sensible option, then I mean, you need the bank of mum and dad or the bank of granny and grandpa to help you out. And again, there's no shame in that. But that's for middle class people, if your family is poor and you have no financial assistance from your family, then our heart bleeds for younger people. It really does.
But would you agree that if a 20-something knows what they want to do, that takes a lot of the load off? It's like, I know what I'm doing. I've got a path.
Well, as I've already tried to teach you and your brother and sister, knowing what you want to do, having a passion, having an enthusiasm for something,
right,
even if it seems impossible, because you've got to get out of bed every morning, and there's got to be a reason for you to do it. Otherwise, it's a drag. Having done that for years and years, drag myself out of bed, doing a job I hate.
8 hours,
9 hours. You got to commute. And in London, I was on the tube, traveling in for 40 minutes, and it can be soul destroying.
Wear you down mentally.
Yeah. So, but to know that you have a passion or something that you love doing, you might be doing something that you don't love doing in order to fund.
Yes.
But to have a passion for something, even if it's not well remunerated, I think that's everything, because as again, people come and go, girlfriends, boyfriends, friends come and go, but your passion for what gets you out of bed in the morning is what you have. I'm a playwright, and it drives me nuts, and I feel underappreciated. But I've always got ideas rattling around in my head. So
your brain is your brain is developed for that.
Yeah, because you've got to have something to hold on to that is within you. I think, because we're all going to die, and the people we love will die. People leave. You've got to have something that is, while you're alive, is your passion. That will be with you until your dying breath. I had David Powell, a good friend of mine who died recently. He was a playwright, novelist. He was just a real writer, poet, short story writer.
Did everything.
He was writing literally until he couldn't type on the typewriter. He literally, didn't quite die on the typewriter, but he wasn't far off.
Yeah.
In fact, he sort of a few days before he died said, "Oh, come on, Torben, I can't finish this play because I can't see and I can't type. But can you finish it off for me?"
Wow.
And he's such it's like a religion. So committed, and not everything he did was staged. He wrote some brilliant novels that no one published, that were for some reason, because they weren't thought to be saleable commodities, but they were brilliant. But like that passion for writing or whatever it is, it doesn't matter if it's stamp collecting or train spotting, have a passion, because otherwise life, which is not an easy enterprise, is almost impossible if you haven't got that, even if it's for helping other people.
Yeah. So if there's someone listening who's like getting a bit panicky now, it's like, oh, I don't have a passion. I don't know what I want to do. I've gone through school. I'm out and I've got to work, and maybe I'm in a dead end job. I'm a waiter or waitress, or I don't actually know where I want to go.
Even in a well-paid office job.
Well-paid office. Maybe you just wake up one morning and you're like, actually, I don't see myself doing this.
Well,
day after day.
Don't people then go, right, well, I'm not really don't know what else I want to do, but I'm going to just earn as much money as I can and make
then retire.
It bearable as I can, and maybe have a family and create meaning that way. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, maybe we do have children. Why do we have children? Obviously there's a biological impulse, but ultimately it's to sort of give ourselves something to get out of bed for, isn't it? Like a meaning.
So if your job doesn't provide intrinsic meaning, it's what the money from that job.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean,
for your family.
We've got to find some way to make existence bearable and preferably enjoyable, because it's, you know, it's tough, and particularly now. I mean, it's, you know, with everything that's going on, the war in Ukraine, the genocide in Gaza, the dreadful litany of appalling politicians. You know, well, most of my lifetime really, but they've just got steadily worse and worse and worse. I mean, and the country just seems to be, you know, broken, you know, miserable. To find some joy and for young people, it's difficult. I think in the 90s, although I was a mess, it was generally quite an optimistic decade when I sort of was in my 20s. For most people, I mean, I wasn't, but there was a sort of sense of something of my generation. But for you guys, it just seems.
I mean, I guess I came into my 20s with Greta Thunberg on TV saying, you know, the climate change, the world's going to end, and Extinction Rebellion, and you got Donald Trump, and you just got all these really kind of like terrible forces.
Well, you were born into
the world.
You were born 2 weeks after 9/11, weren't you?
Yeah.
So it was like, you know, it wasn't great, and then the Iraq War.
Mm-hmm.
So for your lifetime, I mean, it's for everyone. You know, when I was born, it was the day I was born, I think, was the Tet Offensive in Vietnam. I mean, it's always horror.
But would you say you've never seen it any worse in the government?
I just feel the feeling, the feeling in the country seems a bit sadder and a bit more desperate. I might be wrong, but it seems to be more difficult. Yeah, and you know, so I loathe and detest Tony Blair, but I mean, in terms of the politicians that come after him, I mean, he seems almost statesman-like. He should be statesman-like from inside a prison cell, obviously, but you know, in terms of the dreadful prime ministers and governments we've had, I mean, it doesn't even bear thinking about.
So, I mean, that's another thing that we're not taught at school is politics. I remember actually in middle school, which is like secondary school, in year 6, my teacher was like, "Oh, I don't even think about politics. I don't engage with it." When students were asking him about politics, I think it was like PE or something, and it kind of just epitomized like there's we don't talk at all about politics or our government or anything. No. It's like, surely that's the most relevant thing to talk about.
Yeah, well, I think
not maths.
I think if I remember with yourself, when Corbyn became a thing, and you know, I was unashamedly a Corbyn supporter and still am. Well, much abuse and ridicule has been visited on my head for that. But I remember because his mild socialism was
he was getting young people a bit more.
Yeah,
engaged,
and then you got really into it because suddenly there was something to believe in. Suddenly there was somebody
exciting.
Who was saying stuff that was decent and about looking after each other and nationalising the industries and so you and I had lots of conversations because then I could suddenly explain to you what the alternative to the the liberal capitalist gangbang that we've had raging for decades. This is what the alternative is. Obviously, it had no chance of ever getting anywhere near government, but it was a little beacon of hope for. I think you were about 16.
Yeah, 16.
You know, you suddenly got interested in it, and a lot of people got interested. A lot of young people got interested in it. Of course, it was quickly squashed by with the help of the media and you know the sham anti-Semitism
allegations
that were all totally bogus.
So for our American listeners, could you tell me who Jeremy Corbyn is?
Corbyn, I don't know, he's about 70 years old. He's been a lifelong socialist. He's campaigned tirelessly against racism, was camping outside the South African embassy in Trafalgar Square in the 80s when all the people who accused him of racism were profiting from the apartheid regime. An all-round good egg, I guess, for an American who'd be like a Bernie Sanders, but with more integrity. I think Bernie Sanders is a bit of a flip-flop, but he's a left-wing politician that sticks to his guns, is vilified by the press. He wanted an inquiry into the illegal Iraq war, where Blair, etc., might be held to account for their murderous invasion of Iraq, and that would be one of the reasons why he never got a sniff of power. He was never going to get a chance. He also believes in the rights of the Palestinian people, which is, for some reason, an unpopular policy when it's just being a human being. And he was vilified and ridiculed and kicked out of being the leader of the Labour Party, mainly by his own party, who are the Keir Starmers, the right wing. The right wing of the Labour Party destroyed him.
So, basically, if you're a 20-something today, you're in a situation where politics isn't speaking to you, and the world isn't kind of catering to getting you into the job market and maybe it's harder to get a relationship, it's harder to find the career that you love. So, what would you say are good next steps for 20-something trying to figure out what the hell they're doing?
If you're feeling a bit lost in this world, take comfort from the fact that those people who feel lost are generally onto something. Fitting into what is ostensibly an insane system and an insane world means you've kind of internalized the values of that system. So if you find it easy to slot into a lunatic asylum, you're probably a lunatic. If you're feeling lost and you don't fit in, it's difficult. I had it, doing a series of low-paid jobs. It's almost, particularly if you started off with a lot of privileges and opportunities, and you're not earning a big salary. It's the way people see you. They look at you as if you're a loser and a failure, when really you're just trying to work out what the hell, how can I be sane in an insane world? And to do that, you're going to have to feel lost and lonely for sometimes years. But you have to hold on, and read. I would say meditate, learn mindfulness.
So we haven't really touched on what mindfulness is. So what is mindfulness?
For me, as I mentioned earlier, it's understanding that your thoughts are not you. Some people are totally identified with the thoughts in their head and never stop talking. So as soon as the thought comes in their head, they start talking as if that is them. I was one of them. When I realized there was a separation and that my thoughts were just a stream of general rubbish, that stream of general chit-chat was nothing to do with who I was. That was just predicated on my conditioning of my childhood and my reactions to my childhood. Obviously, brain chemistry, the wiring of one's brain obviously plays a factor. But ultimately, to me, that light bulb moment was just that simple fact. I am not my thoughts. Thoughts disappear. They come and they go as quickly as anything.
Yeah, I think that's why in some guided meditations, you look at your thoughts like they're clouds. Because in the same way we don't identify with clouds, we don't think that cloud is me, that cloud is who I am. We should also look at our thoughts in the same way, that they're just clouds passing by, and we don't put our identity on them.
Yeah, it's a stream of madness, because our minds have evolved to solve problems for us, and because we live in such a complicated world, our minds have been overstimulated, and it is just trying to solve problems for us that don't actually exist anymore. We're not under, most of us, unless you live in Gaza, are not under threat of imminent bombing or attack. We haven't got wild tigers coming to eat us, but we create endless amounts of imaginary anxiety. I'm 57. I still lie awake swatting phantoms, that worries and problems that don't exist. Particularly if you've got children, you worry about your children when they're all perfectly happy asleep in their beds. And what is doing that is our mind does not want to be present. It wants to generally be living in the future.
So we're trying to change the world to sort out our minds, to settle our minds, but actually we have to look within and change ourselves. Otherwise, the world will never appease us, make us happy, make us settle our minds.
But it's all about control, isn't it? It's about being a good stoic. It's about what you can control and what you can't control. It's like trying to control the weather, being angry about it raining. It seems obvious, but everyone does it from time to time, and it's just madness.
So so reading and mindfulness, those are the two take homes.
Yeah, I started reading properly. I mean, I was educated, been to university. I hadn't really read anything for pleasure probably since Mr. Men when I was 5. You know, I was just I read purely to pass exams, not for pleasure and not for growing in my soul or anything like that. So I'd say from about 25, 26, I just really the penny dropped and I just started reading. So I would advise anybody who's feeling lost. And of your generation, I know that reading is not the most popular pastime, but you know, put away your phones and pick up a book, fiction or non-fiction. And
Okay,
just
so
immerse yourself in reading.
I don't have any books. I'm online. I want to order a book. I want to start reading. Give me a book to read.
Well, it depends. That's a bit of a.
Give me a book that maybe excited you, inspired you.
Well, I think I read The Selfish Gene, which I always talk to you about context therapy. If you're feeling lonely and lost and it's all about you, read popular science. I'd always go to popular science. And The Selfish Gene, that was the book I read. I mean, obviously I believed in evolution and what I knew what genes were, but I hadn't actually read the book, and it hadn't been explained so brilliantly by Mr. Dawkins. And I can remember reading that and thinking, wow, and that set me off on a huge binge of popular science. And immediately the insignificance of your existence when you're reading science, or if you read I read books about, you know, dinosaurs or geology or cosmology or anything that puts you back into your box, puts your ego back into its box, immediately makes you calmer, immediately makes you sort of laugh at your obsessions with yourself, because you're obviously an insignificant speck in a very old world, and you'll be gone before you know it. So you might as well laugh about it. Well, I mean, that's what science does for me, anyway.
Well, yeah, I agree. I also get that same sense from reading Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, because most of that is context therapy. Just how small you are, how short the time you have on this planet is. Just really, it's all about putting everything into context. What is the thing that's worrying you? Break it down into its elements. Try to take away the judgment. Just look at everything.
I think it's really important to have a philosophy. It doesn't, you know, we're all self-deluding creatures. It doesn't even matter if that philosophy may or not be flawed. I mean, you could look at Donald Hoffman, who would say that it's all an illusion. We're all in some kind of virtual reality game. But, you know, to have a philosophy, and there's obviously, for me, it's Buddhism / secular Buddhism and Stoicism, talking about Marcus Aurelius. Those two combined, and I cherry pick from both of them, have helped me navigate through my existence. Without that, you know, I don't know whether I'd still be as at sea as I was in my 20s, but it was seeing a system of other people have been treading this path for thousands of years, and it worked for them, and they're just saying, why don't you try it? And you should try it.
That's what's amazing is, reading really, really old books of people talking about their life and thinking, wow, these are all the same issues, same problems, same concerns.
Marcus Aurelius saying, be nice to your slaves.
Yeah, apart from maybe that.
Don't have sex with your slaves.
So those are the two books that we recommend, I think. Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins.
Well,
and also, if you have time, Meditations.
I could go on.
We could go on.
You asked me for one.
I just say just to start off, it will start your reading journey in a good way.
Yeah, if you're not a reader, I mean, because
a lot of people aren't readers. So.
The very fact of sitting down with a book and putting your phone away, not being distracted by messages or YouTube shorts. I mean, that we've both read Stolen Focus, haven't we, by Johann Hari, which is another book recommendation about how particularly younger people are unable to concentrate on anything. But just reading a book, sitting down for 3 or 4 hours, reading a book.
It's meditation in itself.
It's totally grounds you, makes you peaceful. I mean, it's just the act of reading is a saver. It can save you.
Oh my God, for sure. You're taking time out to work on yourself and be calm. And
it's been proven that reading fiction will help you be more compassionate. If you want to become a nicer person, you know, maybe help the old lady across the road, good, but read a novel.
Read about someone helping.
Read a good novel and realise that you can live lives, to appreciate lives that are different from your own. And it's by the same token, those people who don't read, you can always tell them, people who don't read fiction, they just read the newspapers or occasionally a biography, or, they're a certain type of person, maybe not the most sensitive, compassionate kind. So I'd say reading made me a nicer person and certainly a less anxious and miserable one.
Read. That is...
Yeah, and go easy on the intoxicating drugs, or preferably give them up.
Try to be as sober as you can.
Yeah.
Work on your relationship to pleasure.
Don't escape from feeling bored or anxious through any form of drug, because it can lead to a very slippery slope. Says me, who still likes the occasional alcohol binge, but certainly not on the same level that I used to when I was your age. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that read, give up booze, and meditate, and you won't go too far wrong.
I think that's a really, really nice way to end this episode.
Or take up chess, because that's also good for you.
But that could be also an addiction.
No, it's become an addiction for me. I've got to give that up. I need to go to chess rehab.
Yeah. We can have a whole episode talking about your relationship to chess. I'm sure we can do that at some point.
We won't get too many views.
So thanks so much, Dad, for being in my first ever proper podcast episode.
Your virgin podcast. Well, it was my pleasure to deflower you in that way.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. You can cut that out.